been a while since we've seen the Cubs be this connected to an actual star player, and while Kyle Tucker's name doesn't really carry the aura of an MLB superstar, the stats would suggest that he absolutely is one. Tucker from 2020 through 2023 averaged 5.9 B-WAR per 162 games and was an excellent player in every aspect of the game without breaking into MVP candidate territory. 2024 was different though. He was limited to 78 games, but still put up 4.7 WAR, which would have led the Cubs and turned into the kind of hitter this team hasn't had in almost a decade. Tucker put up a 996 OPS, the Cubs leader was Seiya Suzuki at 848, he also put up a 408 on base and hit 23 homers for a 162 game pace of 47. Under the hood, pretty much everything Kyle Tucker did before 2024 indicated that he was great, but last year he really crossed into top 10 hitter in baseball territory with nothing even remotely close to a flaw showing up in his offensive profile. He's not the Gold Glover he once was in right field and has lost a lot of speed, but he does remain a really good, prolific, and efficient base stealer. It's hard to say if the hitter Kyle Tucker looked like last year is the one he'll be over a hopefully full 2025, but the point is, he's a superstar, one good enough to contend for the MVP award next year in either league, and also would have last year if not for a freak shin injury in which he fouled a ball off his leg and collapsed in agony. This is the type of player Cubs fans have gotten used to looking at and saying, well, we could get him, but there's just no way this front office is willing to pay the price. And that could be the case with Tucker, but really, it wouldn't be their fault. The Astros have Tucker under control for one more season, and could very feasibly just keep him and try to get back to the playoffs in 2025. What they're trying to do is jump the gun on a guy who's going to be a free agent no matter what, and get back a return that significantly lifts up their future for a guy who they hope they can make the playoffs without. It makes sense that they'd want a lot for a guy of Tucker's caliber, and with Juan Soto off the market, he is easily the best hitter available right now. But he is still probably a one-year rental, as there's really no reason why he wouldn't at least test the market next winter, and so trading elite prospects for a guy like that, as well as controllable major leaguers, which the Astros want, is quite scary, but the Cubs always seem to be scared and that hasn't gotten them anywhere. So what should they pay for Tucker? Well, with 8 top 100 MLB pipeline prospects, you'd think finding a deal for Tucker wouldn't be too complicated, but the initial reports have made things seem more difficult than one might initially think. A name that we've surprisingly been seeing floating around in trade rumors lately, specifically for Tucker, is Seiya Suzuki. Now, Tucker is a better player than Seiya, period. Seiya is also under contract for 2 seasons, while Tucker is under contract for 1. He's also been a top 20 qualified hitter the past 2 seasons, ranking just ahead of guys like Jose Ramirez, Rafael Devers, and Kyle Schwarber in WRC+. Last year, Seiya was 16th among qualified hitters in WRC+, and with a mark of 138 was 38% better than the league average hitter, and better than a whole host of MLB stars. His defense was bad last year, but not nearly as despicable as people will tell you. Bad though to the point where you would prefer him at DH, as he put up -3 outs above average in right field, and has had a few very notable mistakes over his Cubs career. He's not the worst outfielder in the league though. In fact, he is nowhere near it. There were 35 outfielders with lower outs above average than Seiya, the vast majority of them being worse hitters. While the OAA stat might be slightly overrating Seiya's defense, contending teams were okay throwing guys with worse gloves out there who hit similarly, like Jurickson Profar and Teoscar Hernandez, and again, most of those guys were worse hitters than Seiya. So we'd like Seiya to DH, but we don't absolutely need him to. Turns out, according to his agent, Seiya doesn't really want to DH full-time at least. Well, 2 things. For one, the Cubs can still put him at DH despite this statement. People online are for some reason acting like after this got out from his agent, the Cubs are now forced to start him in right field for 162 games. That is far from the case. Second, as I've explained, you in fact can live with Seiya in right field, especially when he's putting up the best offensive season in the NL Central, like he just did. All this is to say that it would suck to trade Seiya Suzuki, especially if he was moving in a deal for a guy with 1 year left on his contract. If Seiya's gone in a trade for Tucker, and Tucker then hits free agency, and the Cubs don't give him the massive payday he'll want, they'll be sitting in 2026 with no headlining bat. Additionally, Seiya is a guy you want in your lineup with Tucker. A lineup with both hitters makes the Cubs look like a playoff team. A lineup where Seiya is swapped for Tucker still might not quite be enough in 2025, and then you've made yourself worse in 2026. There's more on the table than just Seiya though. I don't think fans would object nearly as much to a trade where Isaac Paredes, in addition to a lot more, became a Houston Astro. Paredes is a better player than what he showed on the Cubs, and his extreme pull-heavy bat suits Minute Maid Park way more than it does Wrigley Field, and there will need to be an infield spot open if Matt Shaw remains in the Cubs organization. Trading Paredes would allow the team to keep Nico Horner at second while having a spot for Shaw open, and that's a great thing given the fact that Nico has been a 3.5 to 5 WAR player for the past 3 seasons, and there is far from any guarantee Shaw ever reaches that type of production. So Paredes is certainly on the table, so is I think almost any non-Matt Shaw prospect in the farm. The Cubs, with again 8 top 100 prospects, should not be too gun shy. You can lose a few and still have a ton of talent down in the minors. I'm probably a bit more lenient on trading these prospects than a lot of viewers will be, but I'd move anyone. You don't want to move too many of them, but I don't think individually, besides Matt Shaw, there is a prospect I'm pretty aggressively holding on to when Kyle Tucker is on the table. If this team had a bunch of open spots everywhere, and we had these prospects penciled in to be our opening day starters next year, then my opinion would be different, but the spots aren't there, and they are just prospects, none of them ranking as elite ones, and Kyle Tucker is an elite major league player. Beyond the Cubs' big name prospects, other guys may have value to Houston. They could take a chance on Ben Brown or a Jordan Wicks. I certainly wouldn't let giving up either of them hold up a deal, and maybe there's prospects they like outside the Cubs' top names. If a trade does materialize though, some of those players would certainly not headline the deal for Houston. Their GM Dana Brown knows what Kyle Tucker is worth and is not letting him go for anywhere near the realm of cheap. In fact, he might be somewhat delusional. A recent report suggests the Astros, in addition to Isaac Paredes and Seiya Suzuki, would want one of the Cubs' last 2 first-round picks, those being Matt Shaw and Cam Smith. If you are even beginning to think of accepting something like that, Kyle Tucker's extension with the Chicago Cubs better be damn near signed already, because for 1 year of a player, that is a ridiculous ask. And I know people are always quick to reject trade ideas as being bad for their team, and people do like to overvalue their own team's players, but that is a legitimately, objectively unfair proposal. Other than what I've mentioned already, the Cubs and Stros could get creative. Maybe we find a way to dump off Cody Bellinger's contract in this deal. Whether that means we have to send more, or the Astros send us a little something in return, I do not know, but there are lots of possibilities. Maybe by the time this video ends, Kyle Tucker has been traded to the Cubs, to the Yankees, who knows, or maybe the Astros were just gauging interest and will keep him through next year to try and get further than they did in 2024. That team is still really good, and it will only be better with a full season of this elite version of Kyle Tucker. That is all I got to say on this matter. Thanks guys for watching, let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next one.